because all my children, even adults. And she's like, maybe. Right.
So we're on now.
No.
Just so everybody knows.
Oh, yes.
Well, we might be.
We might be
There's
on.
a lot of side conversation.
We're good? Okay, all right. I call to order the April 7th, 2021 Masco Regional District School Committee meeting at 7:05. In accordance with current state regulations, there is no in-person access to this meeting, but we are streaming this live and recording it, and the recording will be posted on the Masco website. We'll go straight to comments from the audience. We're going to use Zoom again tonight, just for this portion of the meeting. So if anyone's listening and has a question for us, you want to hit the Zoom link that's on the agenda, right below the YouTube link that you probably hit initially. Following normal public meeting protocol, the committee will not respond immediately to comments made during this part of the meeting, but we may choose to address the topics raised to an agenda item later in the meeting or at a future meeting. And so I'm going to go and call on people. If you could turn your camera on when making a comment and introduce yourself and let us know what town you're from. So we'll, Kathleen Scarpata, you want to start? Is she frozen?
She doesn't have audio right now.
Okay.
She's not frozen. I can see her eyes moving.
Oh, right.
It says she's connecting to audio
Okay.
It didn't look like her hand was rose.
with Joe.
Oh, that's her. That's her. Kathleen, can you hear us? You can.
You can. We can't hear you. Oh, wait. We're good.
Now she's just muted.
We're good.
Oh, she's
Just
muted?
unmute now. Should be ready to go. TJ, it's coming out of my laptop again.
Yeah, 1 second, Kathleen. We're
Let's
just
see
going
what's
to
up.
fix the audio on our end.
That woke me up.
Yeah, Kathleen, do you have another number called in, like Joseph's? You might be echoing off of that one. I see.
You can just unmute me and I can't. I'm sorry.
Sounds like a psychedelic movie from the 60s.
Give it a try now.
Okay. Want to give it a try?
Experience with us?
Just big screen.
Okay, can you hear me?
That is
Perfect.
That is
Yeah. I am terribly sorry for that. I was having trouble logging in on one computer, so I was trying another, and then I guess they both popped up at the same time.
No problem.
Yes, and I apologize. I actually did not have my hand raised, but I did want to call in, and I did want to say thank you to everyone who has been working in getting the kids back into school full time. Both my girls will be returning, thankfully, in the middle school and the high school. I do wish we could have a little bit more information maybe tonight about what live streaming will be available, how that's going to work. Is it going to be dependent on each individual teacher, or is there going to be some kind of requirement that there be a certain amount of interaction directly to the students in front of the teachers? What accommodation, how many teachers will still be remaining on accommodations? I think these are questions that many people will probably have questions about tonight as well. So I'll just kind of end it there and wait for your guidance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I don't see anybody else, right?
No, that's it.
Okay. All right, so yeah, we're going to close out comments from the audience and the Zoom meet.
Wow.
And we'll go to the Student Advisory Board update with, is it Lindsay and Jackie here tonight?
Yes.
Hi.
Do you want me to stay here or?
Do you want to stand up?
Yeah, I can go over there.
We might be able to hear you better.
Thank you. Hello, I'm sure you all know me by now, but my name is Lindsay and I'm the Junior Class Student Advisory Board member. Today was the last day of the third quarter and the student body has been busy. The Student Council's new open projects just wrapped up. These projects included an in-person learning campaign, a series of interviews with prominent local and national leaders, and more. The student body seemed to enjoy these projects, and they gave senior members of the Student Council a final chance to lead. Furthermore, members of the Student Council held NASCO's first ever Black History Month Assembly, which we are excited to continue with in the future. In addition, the junior and senior class officers are planning end-of-the-year outdoor events to make up for the cancellation of prom. Although these events will not compete with prom, we are excited for our grades to get together in a fun way before this year closes. Despite a common desire to see our classmates, many are opting to remain at home for the end of the school year because they have adapted to remote learning, and the pressure to attend fully in person with no leniency is anxiety-inducing. On a similar note, many of my peers have mentioned burnout from the workload and lack of breaks. They say that their productivity has declined because they have no time to rest, especially when out-of-school obligations conflict with homework, as they did for many this past Easter weekend. An effective solution would be occasional homework-free weekends, so students can get a chance to reset and prepare for another busy week. Overall, the theme of adapting and shifting norms has prevailed, and students still demonstrate their resilience and creativity by planning and executing events that will continue in NASCO's future. Once again, I'm excited to continue working with you all next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
It's not like a hard one, but I'm always so impressed with the presentations that you guys have been giving this year. Like, I think that is really awesome. It's talking a lot about the stuff that we want to hear. How do you guys put together what you're going to say? Is that like do you have a meeting about, let's meet and talk about what we're going to do on the school committee? Is it written up by like a few people? Is there a committee on that? Like, how does it work?
No. Sometimes I text the other officers or the student reps, but it's mostly like what I hear, because like a lot of people have been telling me that they've been feeling really burnt out.
Yeah.
And like Easter weekend, I know myself, like I didn't do very well on a test on Monday because I didn't study because I was celebrating Easter.
Yeah.
So it's just like stuff that I hear, stuff that like goes on.
Well, it's very good writing as well as speaking.
Thank you.
So I'm proud of yours.
It's very impressive.
Hello everyone. I wanted to introduce myself to the school committee this meeting. I'm Jackie Bizazzi and I assumed the role of President of the Student Council just last week. I first off would like to express my gratitude for everything you have done as a school committee to ensure that we as students get the best education this year as possible. We have been humbled to work closely with you this past year and look forward to continuing our relationship for this upcoming year. Currently, the Student Council is conducting the student government elections, and tomorrow night we'll have voting closed for all voters. Election winners will be announced this Friday, and our senior SAB at large, Nicole, as you may already know, has concluded her term, and Raquel Rave, who is unopposed, will be the new SAB at large. Regarding the student body, lately I have seen a decline in the mental health of many of my peers, especially during this difficult time. I have heard peers say that they are worried to get the true help they need so they do not miss school. The Student Council has made many efforts to increase mental health awareness in our school, yet many still struggle to access school resources. The Student Council kindly requests that more is done to share and make more accessible mental health resources. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I look forward to working with you all ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Congratulations on your election. It's exciting. Does anyone have any questions for Jackie? Thank you for joining us, and I think next year we will continue to have the SAB updated, and at the beginning of the meeting, which I think probably works better for your schedules as well. You're welcome to stay for any or all of the meeting, and you're also welcome to go home when you want to. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the middle school principal report with Bill McManus.
Okay.
Hey, Phil.
Hi, everyone.
Hey there.
So, thank you for that. It's good to have some talk back from the audience. All right, so we got the middle school principal report tonight. I know you're dying to hear it. I got some good stuff to share with you. Quick update on the in-person attendance. On average, we're seeing about 210 students attend in person between the two grades and cohorts right now. Compared to the last report that I gave to you, we had 150 students on average at that time. So, in that time, we've had the survey about students coming back for April 26th. People have committed to one learning modality or the other, and I think that we're seeing the results of that now. A lot of students who may have been fully remote to start the school year or over the winter, whatever it may be, now are easing back in to the in-person learning before April 26th. They're coming into the hybrid program. So that's been good to see. MCAS update. We'll be administering the MCAS exams in May and June. We've created a testing schedule to test in-person students. We're still waiting for the official test window dates from the state, but we did set our own in-house window from May 10th to June 11th. The state did tell us that June 11th is the deadline to finish, so we're working with about a month's time from there. The state also said that they will provide a remote test for remote learners, so we're waiting on more information for that, which is big news. We have no idea how that's going to work. Mike said he's going to take care of all that. No problem. Community building. The inaugural Masco Totem Trophy was awarded to the 7 Blue team. They had the greatest participation in last month's Spirit Week, so that was really exciting. We're also coming up here, Masco Connects is introducing a lip sync challenge for students with prizes, and the Totem Trophy being awarded for that. And then this week, the trophy was awarded to the 7 White team. Their students won the reading challenge for the most number of pages read in a set amount of time. That was a school-wide challenge sponsored in part by Mrs. Gaddy and the library. So that was really great. The Totem Trophy is one of the things that came out of Masco Connects. You've heard me start talking about that this winter, and it's been going really well. It's something that's going to live on and continue. You can see from the pictures up there, that was from the first presentation, how big it is. See that with the globe, and it's life size,
You should have brought it up, Phil. It's pretty impressive.
What's
You
that?
can run and go get it.
Yeah, I should have wheeled it down. You're right. That would have been good. So it's really neat. So return to in-person. That's the big thing coming up, right? So by the numbers, we have 510 students who opted for in-person learning, 67 opted for fully remote, and that translates to 88% of the student body are planning to be here in person for April 26th. So we're really pleased with those numbers in the middle school. We think it will make a big difference for our students for the last, whatever it ends up being, about 8-9 weeks or so of school. 7-8 weeks, I guess. But we're looking forward to that. It does translate. Every class will have a handful or a few students that will be learning from home. But more than the majority of students are going to be in the classrooms every day, which will be good for nice change for teachers too. So as far as getting ready for that, we compile a list of all the classroom furniture needs with the roster numbers by room, basically matching up the number of desks with the largest number of students in each classroom. So Jeff and his team with facilities is setting up classrooms in the field house to accommodate the greater number of students that we're going to have. All the teachers have to create new seating plans. We have to come up with a new seating chart for the field house for lunches. So there's a lot of work that goes into that. The school nurse is creating a video to review hygiene and mitigation practices for students, just reviewing the social distancing, especially outside of the classrooms when they're in hallways, passing between classes, mask wearing, hand hygiene, mask breaks, lunches, that sort of thing. So she's working on that. And then teams are planning a mini orientation program and welcome activities for the first day on April 26th. So there's going to be some welcoming activities for when kids arrive. They're going to do some team building activities. It's really a non-traditional kind of schedule for that day to help kids get acclimated to not only being in the building for some of the kids who are coming back for the first time, but more being in classes with students who have only been seen on a screen for the whole year, and being in a full classroom when you could have 20 kids instead of 10 or 11 or 12, whatever it was before. So that's going to be ongoing, but they're planning some fun activities for that first day. All right, moving on here to our Excels program. I've talked about this over the course of the year. We've got 13 programs planned for students to sign up for, which will begin right after vacation. And this is adding to that social emotional learning piece for fun activities for kids to be able to connect with each other outside of the classroom. I won't read through everything, but I'll give you a minute just to take a quick look at the programs that we're going to have. I'll just quickly point out the cooking program. It's really neat that we can offer that this year. It's not something we could really offer in the past because we don't have kitchens here to use for the kids, but since they can do it remotely at home, it gives students a chance to be able to participate in that in a school activity while they're at home. And then quickly here, some art class photos. This is from Mrs. Amsler's class called All About Me. And they were digital collages that students made to describe their hobbies and express their identity as a get-to-know-you project for the start of the third trimester, which we're in right now. Just quickly read out the kids so that I give them credit. The first one, we have Kaylin Wright. Oh, whoops. Didn't mean to do that. Hold on just a second here. Kaylin Wright, Neva Partel, Nathaniel Merzek, Marlena Descharmes. I think I'm missing one. I don't have the name. It's not coming up for me. But anyway, they did a nice job with those. And then my last one here, this was 8 white students created a mosaic self-portrait using Google Draw. And the students pictured from left to right are Sophie Gustafson, Catherine Caulfield, Massimo Mastramate, Abhay Sharma, and then on the next row, Tiana Kutal, Liam Gruner, and Mia Hogan. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So that's my update for tonight. Short and sweet, but we have a lot of fun stuff going on in the middle school right now. And we're looking forward to April 26th and getting rolling with the full in-person learning.
Thank you, Phil.
All right, you're welcome.
Any questions for Phil?
Kudos to the art department as always, and to the artists. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I always ask them for a couple pictures to show, and they send me a whole bunch that I have to squeeze into the slides there. But it's easy to show the artwork this year too, because a lot of it is digital. So.
It's great.
Oh, Silly.
Yes.
Thank you. I was wondering about the 8th grade. Any plans? This is probably the time that you would begin. I know you're very focused on that transition right now, but if there's any sense of promotions ceremony or transition.
Yeah, we've been talking about a moving on ceremony for the end of the year. Jeff and I were actually just meeting today to see what we can do. We don't have any definite plans to announce yet. We are looking at a way to be able to honor the 8th graders with something.
Okay.
But we have to work within the strict guidelines of the pandemic right now and state and everything else. So we're working on that.
Thanks.
Yes.
So is there anything that's not going so well as you prepare for the 26th?
I mean, we're rocking and rolling right now. We're getting ready, so we're in good shape. I would say, prior to the last week or two, is really just getting all the answers for the surveys in. That just took a lot of legwork on our end. Guidance counselors were making a lot of phone calls to follow up. There were just some families that hadn't filled out the survey, or
So you were able to get answers from just about everyone?
Yeah, we've got an answer for everybody.
Great.
So it took a lot of legwork, but yeah, we got that done. So I would say, things right now we're pretty good. It's just, making sure that we get everything done in time for the 26th and going from there. But I think we're in good shape. If anything, I mean, the MCAS is really where my frustration is. I joke about it, but really it's, they haven't given the middle school definitive dates, and we're the only group really waiting because the elementary grades have their dates. The high school has their information. They just got more information this week about the class of 2022. But the middle school, it's like, well, what about us? We really feel like the middle child right now, kind of forgotten about. So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Melissa?
So right now in the middle school, I believe there's like A and B weeks. Is that
Yes.
going to change at all once you're on April 26th?
Well, the A and B weeks, like as far as which of your elective courses you take, right? We're going to stick with that same kind of rotation because we're doing it now. It's working. We'll still do the every 2 weeks back and forth. So instead of trying to introduce something new again to students, Yep.
I love the idea. I think you used the word orientation, but the idea of with the cohorts coming together.
Yes.
It's helping them acclimatize to that whole new world. With the smaller remote cohort now.
The smaller what?
Remote.
Yes.
Smaller, fully remote cohort.
Yep.
I'm just wondering, and mostly I just wanted to hear that you guys are having these conversations about how to make sure that they're still included with their peers somehow, and what the expectation is for teachers as far as how to balance that, since now the numbers are so much less balanced.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's hard to include them in the type of orientation activities that we're going to be doing in the building because some of it will involve just basic layout and where to go and how to get to places and what the passing times and things are going to look like. So definitely they're going to be included. As far as expectations for teachers, I don't want to, I think that would better be left to Mike to address for the district. So, but they do need to be, included in class, and they do still need to be taught, and there's going to be a few kids on hand for each class, but it won't be the same as what we're doing now with the hybrid model. So.
Costa?
Yes.
The 67 kids that are going to be fully remote, are they fairly evenly split among the 16s?
Split among the 16s, yes, they are. I think there's more 8th graders than there are 6th graders. Yep.
Chrissy, is your hand up? Is your hand up instead of gas?
It's just a phrase.
Okay, sorry.
Just so you can keep it up.
It's from all the raising hands. She's the only one who raises her hand.
So this is sort of just a follow on to Zilling and Pasta's question. So in terms of those students who are going to be remote, if it proves challenging to include them in a wholly successful way, I'll say, in terms of with their peers from their each individual class, would there be consideration given to finding a way to sort of pair them in activities that can group them together? I imagine a community, right? So the kids who are all returning to school are going to find some more of that community as they come back into their classes. And if we have 1 and 2 kids in each class, I don't know whether it be by grade and by team, that we can take those 2 kids who are in this class here and another class in a different period and group them together, because I think it's just as critical, if not more so, to make sure that those students have some community for the end of the year, because there's also the risk of them feeling more left out and more excluded and socially distant from their peers as their friends go to school every day together and they are still remaining home. So I would want to make sure that we're paying particular attention to that. Not that you wouldn't already be, but it sounds from your comments like it's a challenge that you're still trying to figure out, and I would hope there's some solution that if you can't include them in the in-person group, that you find a way to give them their own group that they can identify with.
Yeah, I'm probably not giving fair amount of credit to the teams. I know that they have been having those conversations with school counselors and how those kids are going to be integrated into classes and how they're going to teach them and work with them and things. It's probably a little bit easier when you have a class of maybe 4 or 5 kids that are remote versus a class where you only have the 1 or 2. So yeah, those conversations are continuing, and I think that they'll continue to happen once students are back in person on the 26th to really see what it shakes out like, and how it works. Kind of the same thing that happened when we started off hybrid. To really see how it works, because until you do it, you might not know.
Yeah.
Kristen, were you suggesting putting them together for the orientation or just in general?
Well, I mean, if there's an orientation day that they can't actively participate in, there might be a way to orient them in, or at least include them in some activities that get them to know each other. But also in general, it helps them build a support structure that they can use if they're not really in classes with their peers and they become more isolated. I don't know how many students would partake of it, but knowing the mental health challenges that so many students who are not attending in person are facing, I think giving them every opportunity for building those connections with people going through similar circumstances is a very valuable opportunity for them. And we have the staff and structure at the school to be able to link them together.
That's a great point.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you so much, Bill. Good luck with
You're welcome.
getting everyone back.
Thanks.
We don't see you until after.
It'll be Wednesday after.
And Wednesday after, you can tell us how it went.
Or 2 days.
We'll move on to the superintendent report with Mike Harvey.
All right, so a lot of what Phil's already told us. We're preparing for the return of students to the middle school for in-person learning on April 26th and to the high school on May 3rd. The middle school survey has been completed. That closed on March 23rd, and as Phil has explained to us, families that did not respond to the survey were then contacted directly by the middle school. And we have approximately 88% of the middle school students indicating they'll return in person on April 26th. High school survey was open for 1 week. It closed yesterday. The initial response rate was around 81%. So it's 894 out of 1,110 students. Of those 894 responses, approximately 69% have opted to return in person and 31% have chosen remote. So we have 216 students left to find out their choice, and so they'll be contacted directly over the next week so we can have a complete accounting of the number of students we're going to expect on May 3rd. Operationally, we're in the middle of completing an over 40-item list of tasks in time for the in-person return on April 26th. The list includes installing the tent adjacent to the field house. That actually happened last weekend. It's already up. Procuring an additional 400 student desks and deploying them to needed areas throughout our buildings. Setting up middle and high school classrooms at 3-foot distancing. Restocking cleaning supplies in classrooms, offices, and bathrooms. Preparing our food services for the greater number of in-person students. Additionally, we're updating our staff and student protocol documents. We're developing guidance for classroom teachers and creating new seating charts for our school buses. Much of the work of physically setting up the buildings will take place over April vacation week. And so there's a lot going on between now and April 26th. Next update is with some changes to our school calendar for this year. In order to provide teachers with some additional time to prepare for the greater number of in-person students, we're going to make some changes to our school calendar. Next Tuesday, April 13th, we'll be administering the SAT to the members of our junior class. I think what happens is around 270 juniors have signed up to take the SATs. That's out of like 287. It's almost all of them. So all other high school students will, the exam is going to be held in the field house because it's the best place to have everybody together to take the test with proctors and everything else. So all other high school students will attend school remotely that day. The middle school students who are in cohort A, that's the regular cohort that's supposed to attend, will attend school in person on that date. Classes for both the middle and high schools will end at 12:30 though on April 13th. So we'll have our early release at 12:30. We'll be providing bus transportation and a grab-and-go lunch for those in-person middle school students and the juniors that are taking the SAT. Additionally, April 26th and May 3rd, we'll be having delayed openings for all students. School will begin at 10 o'clock on those 2 Mondays. The middle and high school administration will be providing families with more information regarding the daily schedule for April 13th, April 26th, and May 3rd as we get closer to those dates. Give you a little MCAS update. So on April 1st, Commissioner Riley announced that he's going to ask the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education to waive the achievement of passing score on the MCAS English Language Arts and Mathematics exams as a requirement for a diploma for the class of 2022, as our current juniors. So earlier we were preparing to have to give the MCAS to all of our juniors and all of our sophomores. And normally all the sophomores take it every year, but the juniors missed it last year. So the initial guidance was test them all. So if the Board of Education approves a recommendation, the 11th grade students will not need to take the MCAS this year or ever. The commissioner has also announced that there will be a remote administration of the MCAS for students in grades 7 and 8 who have opted to learn remotely for the remainder of the year. As you can see here, our middle school principal is thrilled to hear about that. Because this is what's been going on. We've been getting a shot of information a week, and it's always a little different. And as I said, finally, as Phil already told you, the window for completing the MCAS for students in grades 7 through 10 has been extended to June 11th. So stay tuned. I'm sure we'll get more updates as we get further on. We also have some guidance from the department on student groups and school-wide events. So the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education also released updated guidance on student groups and school events for the school year 2020-2021. This document supplements previous guidance on holding graduation ceremonies that was released on March 22nd. Some of the key points of the guidance on student groups and school events for 2021 are that no athletic student group activities non-athletic student group activities should be held virtually. That's been the guidance all along. Clubs and activities, as much as they can be held virtually, they should be. Schools should not hold proms this year. Gatherings that include outside participants should also be held virtually. And activities that require students to leave school grounds should be seriously reconsidered. So that's been the guidance. Those are the big takeaways out of that guidance from DESI.
So does that refer to athletic events?
No, it actually doesn't. It's non-athletic events specifically. So athletics has its whole other set of guidelines. They're not Congress. So they say if you're going to have, the science team is going to have a competition, it has to be virtual. So the executive leadership team has reviewed both of these guidance documents, and we're using them to plan our end of the year events. And so, as Phil talked about doing a move-up day for a recognition ceremony for the 8th grade, we have to use these, these guidance documents to help us plan what we can and can't do. The same thing around graduation. There's pretty heavily scripted as to what is, what the rules are for having a graduation. It's kind of interesting. Graduation is the one place in the entire state that there is no capacity limit. It's the only thing. Everything else is 150 people.
So those guidelines don't apply to graduation?
Those guidelines, no. There's a whole separate set for guidance on holding graduation ceremonies. And that one, those are the ones where it's, they talk about social distancing, they really encourage you to hold it outside. But and it's the one thing that is exempt from that 150-person limit on outside gatherings. That's it.
Do you think that's why that was also the one that said you can't have like a celebration right after?
Right.
So that's probably why. They probably mean like, you can have more people for the ceremony.
But we don't want you sticking around.
It's a literal interpretation of the graduation ceremony, and then it ends, and then it goes to 150.
Right.
So then it shifts, the guidances shift, and then you have to apply the second set of guidance to everything else, which are much more strict.
Much more. As I said, that's the big one, is that even if you want to have an outside gathering, it can't be larger than 150 people. So, I mean, that's a big one.
Per field?
Total, 150.
Total campus or total side of it?
Total campus,
Side of the campus.
Side of the campus, 150. So.
And it said specifically no proms.
Yeah, this guidance that came out on student groups and school events, the commissioner is still referring to it as the no prom guidance. It's not even in the title, but that's what it is. The rationale around it is singing, dancing,
Having fun, yeah.
being close together. They said, we strongly, recommend no proms.
They advise against it. They don't say no.
Yeah, they're advising against.
Yeah.
Strong.
Yeah. More than strong.
Is that it?
That's it.
Can I go back to the beginning? The high school survey, which definitely came out different than the middle school one, which
Yes, it did.
69% saying in person. Have you had a chance to drill down by grade, and is it different?
Not at all. We haven't had any chance
You
to
just got
dig
the
into it.
results.
Yeah, I mean, it closed yesterday.
And you're still following up with
Ryan,
all the other-
the tech department is taking those,
Yeah.
they have to go through them. First off, they have to clean the data. For some reason,
There's multiple responses?
Yeah, for some reason, people seem to answer the survey multiple times, and so we have to go out and hand, extract the multiple responses, and then start counting. And so I don't have a breakdown on grades or anything else like that. The response was pretty even across the 4 grades. The seniors were the lowest response percentage, but it was only 22%, where the other ones would be 24 or 26. So
That didn't respond.
no, 22% of the total responses.
Okay.
But 20% of the high school hasn't
20% of
responded.
the high school hasn't responded at all.
Yeah.
So.
That's interesting. Okay. My other question, you had mentioned, you told everyone about the delayed openings on the first day of middle school. The first day the middle school comes back and the first day the high school comes back. Can you talk about what's going to be going on with the teachers?
Yeah, so that'll be teacher preparation time for getting, having students come in. One of the other big tasks that we're going to have to complete during that is creating new seating charts based on the furniture that's in classrooms. This is a key component of how we contact trace. And so we're going to need to know where every student is sitting every day. And we have to have those time when teachers, middle school teachers, for example, the rooms are going to get set up over vacation. They'll walk in on Monday morning, and it may be the first time that they see how the room is set up. So we have to give them some time to actually put a seating chart together for their 5 classes that day. So the same goes for high school staff as well.
So what time is that delayed?
Still 10. It's a regular delayed opening. Now, part of it is transport.
Oh, the other.
Yeah.
Those other schools.
Those other schools, so we have to.
Any questions for Mark?
Couple, but the one that I just wrote down was about the prom. So the guidelines say alternative. It said something like.
Yeah, they look for alternatives, and that's what we'll do.
And it also says possibly at the end of after school.
After school gets out.
So I have heard like buzz about different ideas. Is there anything, is everything still very much just, we're just talking about all the options?
Yeah, I think that's
But
what
are
it,
there options being talked about?
yes, Mr. Delani is actually meeting with student government, from what I understand. It's going to talk through what the options are. This is going to have to be really fluid, as I've talked about the MCAS information coming out every 3 days. This information seems to be, some kind of the same way. So if we get to the end of May and things are different, then we can try and put something together. I mean, whatever we do, unfortunately, will be last minute. But that's the world we're living in right now. Is if that 150 gets put up to 300, then maybe we can do something else. But for right now, we can't plan on having that as an option.
But it's nice to hear that those conversations with the leadership, the ones
Absolutely.
that that usually have a lot of say in planning those kinds of events, and now, because then if something shifts, they're already talking.
Right.
That's good.
I know actually, I think Tri-Town Council has also been working with Mr. Delani, because there still is thought about what can we do in lieu of the graduation party that the TCC does every year. So they're weighing the options and trying to figure out what else they can do.
Maybe it just doesn't have to have after graduation in the title. Maybe it's just an outing.
You still can't have more than 150 people there right now, so we'd have to divide it into 2 sessions.
Oh. All right. Well, thank you for the update. So we're going to move on to item G, peer leaders in ADL training. We have Ms. Schatzel here tonight and Ms. Almeida. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, thanks for having us. My name is Alyssa Schatzel. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm the assistant principal for the 9th and 10th graders at the high school. And Jenna Almeida is an English teacher at the high school as well. She's also runs the peer leading program, and I'm sort of indirectly involved with the peer leading program as I'm involved with the 9th graders. But what we thought we might do tonight is just kind of give you an update on the peer leading program, and just kind of maybe remind you of the purpose of it. And then Jenna will speak more about the ADL training that the kids did last year, that some of the senior peer leaders this year stepped up and relayed to the junior peer leaders actually earlier today. So it's hot off the press. So just a quick review of the peer leading program. The main purpose of it basically is to acclimate the freshman class to the building, to athletics, to activities, to all things Masco. And we've felt over the years that it's really been a strength, and kids have had a really positive experience with it. And so those upperclassmen, juniors and seniors who are selected, they have to apply. There's some training that goes into it over the summer. And then they have a dedicated group of students, freshman students, who they work with throughout the course of the year. And so there's a lot of growth that they can see with, having those same kids throughout the course of the year. We did a scaled down program this year just because of the pandemic and the limitations, but we do have the freshmen linked up with some seniors and juniors, and they've been meeting virtually throughout the course of the year. Just a list of some other things that in a typical year we would be able to do, like the freshman walk and the 12 days of giving. That's a little breakdown reminder of what we do each month. And with the work that the kids did today, we're looking to implement that into April of 2022. And the training that the kids did will, throughout the course of the year, will be highlighted in the month of April next year. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Jenna. She can talk a little bit more about exactly what the kids did today. And again, it was led by 4 senior students who volunteered, stepped up, and from what I understand, did a really nice job.
Yeah, so today went really well. This was created before today happened, so just keeping that in mind that some of the information might be a little bit different. But the ADL training that we did last year was offered to the juniors in hopes of this year, those juniors would be seniors, and then they would teach that over the summer to our junior class, and it would be implemented a lot more than it was this year. But we had to kind of redirect and change focus and scaled it back a little bit. So the training that they received last year, the ADL came in to Masco and trained all of our seniors. It was a one-day kind of intensive training with a lot of great information. And we were like, this is great, we can do a lot with this. What we decided to do this year was a lot of information and just following up with those now seniors. It was a lot to handle in one day. It's a lot of big topics. It's a lot of hard topics to talk about, and it was that entire day from 7:30 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. So what we wanted to do for this year is really take the learning that we did with the ADL and figure out what really applies to Masco and what should we focus on for Masco. And our 4 senior students, Tori Barboza, Charlotte Losi, Nina Morris, and Liza Raynard really did that. So I'm really big on, giving students the tools to be leaders and then teachers teaching, students teaching students. And this was like a great example of that today. So these 4 seniors each took a section of what we focused on with the ADL. So it was identity, language and communication, understanding bias and bullying, challenging bias and bullying, and then steps toward change. So the 4 seniors each took one of these concepts and focused it to make it Masco. And that's what they presented today. So we did it in a workshop style. So each student had the opportunity from 7:35 to 8:20 to use their WIN block as they needed, check in with teachers, catch up on work, whatever they needed to do. We did an introduction and ground rules with all of us present in the same space. One of the things that they focused on was, setting ground rules before you start talking, just about respect and that, and try to just make it known that the seniors that are giving this training today don't have all the answers. These questions are really hard. My co-advisor, Alec Batchelor, and myself don't have all the answers. We're all still learning this, and we're all going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And there might be some unanswered questions. So just really giving the students the confidence, ask them anyways. Even if you think that it's worded incorrectly, just ask it, and we'll work together to make it better. All we can ask is that you learn and grow. And if you make a blunder, we'll fix it, and we'll be better next time. So setting those ground rules, and then for the rest of the day, we rotated through the different workshop groups. So those seniors were in charge of making their own PowerPoints, focusing on which activities they wanted to do. They created a survey at the end of each of the workshops to ask for feedback and ask for takeaways. And then at the end of the day, we all came together and did a steps towards change and kind of reflected with their takeaways and what they would like to see happen next year. So with that being said, the next steps are to analyze the data that was collected from the summit today. We did that a little bit, just kind of briefly went over the information. We asked them for their takeaways. We asked them for next steps, and then any unanswered questions that they still had that they would like answered. And we told them, we'll create kind of like a Q&A document that we might not have the answers to their unanswered questions either, but we'll have those conversations with people and kind of keep a running document of the hard questions. So we'll determine the important points of emphasis with the greatest connection to Masco and the Masco community to begin planning and learning opportunities for next year. We're going to continue to develop workshops as peer leaders and create training content for the incoming peer leaders next year. So the goal, hopefully, as things hopefully for next year transition back to normal, is to have trainings over the summer. We did that 2 years ago, where the senior peer leaders were training the incoming junior peer leaders, and we again had a kind of workshop days, and that worked really well over the summer, and then focused on the anti-bias curriculum. Hopefully collaborating with other clubs. I know that ACE is gaining a lot of traction. I know that Student Council worked with ACE this year, and they did a little mini Q&A, and ACE is gaining more confidence in doing that type of work. So hopefully we can collaborate with them and with Student Council and other clubs to help the freshman class next year. And then with this training and giving this information to the freshman class, hopefully this conversation will be had, within the next 4 years with all students. But with that being said, I do have some takeaways and some steps towards change that we talked about today. So some of the takeaways from the students were just practicing and keeping an open mind, looking at things from others' perspectives, shared and relatable experiences, having open and honest conversations about hard topics with people who have different perspectives. That came up a lot. Internal reflection and self-evaluation, acknowledge personal biases and how to address those and move forward. Learning how to not be accusatory. We're all learning and growing and trying to be better. Understanding, learning, empathizing, and educating. The importance of allyship and what that actually means. The importance of common language, equity versus equality. That there is a need for this dialogue and that it's definitely a step in the right direction. That was a direct quote from a student. And that students are eager to learn and discuss these hard topics in a safe and productive environment like today. So we did ask the students for their takeaways, and I just want to read a couple because I thought that they were really great. It was the seniors that presented just kept saying like it went way better than we expected, just because given this environment, it's been really hard to get engagement. And I had I didn't attend the workshops, but I had it open and I could see the students were raising hands and they were reacting and they were participating. Jackie and Lindsay maybe can speak to this a little bit. They were present. But some of the comments that were made was that it was a very eye-opening experience in the sense that it forced me to reevaluate my way of thinking and acknowledge my unconscious pre-existing bias. My biggest takeaway is that it's very important to be cognizant of the social, racial, gender-related issues in Masco and society as a whole. I think today was incredibly productive in opening the conversation about these topics, and I hope to continue to educate myself and my paired kids next year. My biggest takeaway from this was taking responsibility to your own biases. I think this is sometimes the biggest issue. People not being able to realize that they are at fault, have at least some of the blame. It is very important for people to slow down and see how they are approaching an issue from someone else's point of view. I also took away that upbringings have so much to do with perspective. I realized today that my peers and I are a lot more different than one another than I thought, and this allowed for me to have my eyes widened to others' points of view. So it was really great in the way that they felt safe and comfortable to have really hard conversations, and they were opening up and they were talking about their personal experiences, and felt confident to do that with one another. So I mean, like, that in itself is all we can ask for right now, to have those conversations. And I think that they not only learned about, bias and anti-racism, but they also learned how to be good leaders and how to ask open-ended questions and how to ask questions that would help students feel comfortable and confident. Do you guys want to share anything in the takeaway department? So Jackie and Lindsay both participated. I didn't know they were going to be here tonight, but extra bonus.
I would say that I learned mostly today is to be an ally to students and everyone in general. Just if you see something happening and you know it's not right and you can safely decide that you can make a move on that and stop the bad situation, that's something that is definitely something that we need to implement in Masco, and I learned a lot on that today.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. My group is super active, and it was actually really nice to hear a lot from people other than just like answering a math question. And we talked about, like, there were some scenarios that were Masco centered kind of, so it'd be like, in the fishbowl this happened. And we talked about ways that we could help the target, and I thought that was super helpful.
Yeah, so all in all, it was a really productive day, and then we discussed next steps. So next steps, we were hoping to do a bigger presentation on this for the freshmen next April, just kind of similar to the style that we always do. But I think that it was clear from the takeaways from the students that this needs to be a conversation that's had obviously more than once, which we know, but trying to think of doing that without having it be the whole focus of peer leading, and doing it in a way that seems like authentic and not forced, I think is one of the biggest things that we took away last year from our training. So students came up with a lot of ways to do that. So maybe we work it into our peer leading groups without saying this is anti-racist and biased curriculum. But then in April be like, all that work that we did and all those things that we talked about is actually how to become, aware of anti-bias and anti-racism. And so we worked at coming up with common language to use for peer leaders to use in their peer groups with freshman students, so that way it was something that they were hearing a little bit more often, and hopefully sharing even that common language document out with the Masco community, so teachers can use that same common language and they're hearing it in more than one place. I think one of the bigger takeaways too, and to moving forward, is that the conversation can't be forced, making sure that we're creating open and safe environments. I think that the students really saw the benefit of, as student leaders, we obviously ask a lot of the kids, but putting themselves out there and being willing to give their personal experiences, I think that you guys saw that it helps the other people kind of want to give their personal experiences as well, and helps everybody realize wow, I'm not alone and other people do experience this too. It's super helpful. Keeping it focused on Masco, it's a big topic and the topic feels bigger when you're trying to relate it to the world. So working little by little, relating it to Masco, and then, broadening up this is also a world thing. And so thinking of that in April, saying we did all these little steps of how this affects Masco, but all right, well, now talking about the world at large, and then working with other clubs such as ACE. And something I just wanted to read that was a student comment that just really stuck out to me and kind of summarized our day, I think, was that they said the future of Masconomet is one of inclusion, equity, and kindness. It has to be. Today was a great opportunity to talk about hard subjects in a changing world. The seniors did an amazing job, and I'm excited to start seeing the world with a different pair of glasses. So I think today went well, and I'm really excited to continue our work with the juniors next year and incorporating it into our curriculum.
Wow.
Wow is right.
That is fantastic. It is such a huge topic to tackle, and I love how you explained how you guys are approaching it. It's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Of course, thanks for having us.
Kristen?
Yeah, this is amazing. I'm really excited to hear all of this. It makes me want to go back to school a little bit, so don't judge. But one thing that kind of ran through my mind while I was thinking about this, and it sounds like you have a lot of great plans for taking this forward. And correct me if I'm misunderstanding something, but the peer leader group, as it gets to be peer leaders, gets certainly smaller. So as you introduce this to the freshmen, certainly they're going to have some takeaways. I would hope that as the program grows, we find a way to continue this dialogue as the kids age, because not every freshman goes on to be a peer leader. But I think this is exactly that kind of conversation that we want to revisit regularly to keep that awareness and that growth going. And it's I think it's such a good conversation to sort of circle back to and touch on. As situations change and students grow in age, they're going to learn more. So I'm hoping that it continues to grow and blossom into a program that impacts all of the students on an annual basis, and not just the peer leaders who are contributing or the freshmen who are first learning.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely.
It was really great.
Thank you. We did talk about that today too, and especially because, freshmen being freshmen, they're very young to be talking about this topic too. So you learn different things as you're growing, and by the time you're seniors and getting ready to leave Masco and possibly leaving the Tri-Town, and just thinking about these bigger spaces and different type of diverse people that you're going to be meeting. We talked a little bit about that today, and hopefully that's where we can start working a little bit more with ACE, and they can have conversations with grade level. But I think that was a big takeaway that you guys kept mentioning today was but it can't end there. It has to be something that, is talked about throughout the year. So I think that is a really great point, and hopefully something that we can collaborate with a bunch of other clubs. And you guys are doing your work with Black History Month, and then, like I said, ACE is gaining a lot of traction too. So.
And last year, the peer leaders were able to go into some English classrooms and do some integrated curriculum with, I think, kids from all different grades, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you.
The last thing you can Ms. Johnson, as part of the anti-racism subcommittee, well, first of all, we would love to hear from these kids if they ever wanted to present something to us, because we love this. But getting this stuff into the classrooms, especially the classrooms that have discussion, As people in that subcommittee with me know, I'm like this huge fan of the Socratic seminar, and like so much of that has to do with what you know what's going on, like the discussion and the listening to other points and dealing with other people's opinions. But yeah, so I would just, if there's any way to get it more into the teachers' hands.
Yeah, so our freshmen started reading Hate You Give very recently. So because I'm an English teacher and the peer leader advisor, myself and Meg Hildebrand kind of piloted the peer leaders coming into our classrooms, and then COVID. So so we were kind of just getting it off the ground, where the captains came in, and there was this great activity with different isms and learning racism, sexism, and all the different things. And it was different posters around the room and how you see it at Masco. And that was another kind of day where I let the peer leaders go in and they had this training and do their thing. I stood outside of the door, but I just feel like it's more effective conversation and more open conversation when it's students teaching students. And so I was within earshot without intruding on the conversation, and just the fact that they had that and then they heard them using it in discussion was great. So hopefully something that we can continue doing, and I know like Meg Hildebrand's definitely on board with doing stuff like that and bringing it into the classrooms, and so looking forward to that for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also like the idea when you talked about the common language, and I was thinking about how I know that that's conversation on the policy side is also happening. But to your point of students with students is so effective, it could also be that the students teach the teachers. Like this is the common language that we all think makes sense. But I had a very silly question, which is, I want to rewatch this later in slow motion because I couldn't. It's a lot of good information to process. You rattled off what LNC, UBB, and CBB stand for, and I didn't get it. Can you said learning.
It was, hold on, I need to look at that. Identity, language, and communication, understanding bias and bullying, and then challenging bias and bullying.
Oh, so that's challenging bias and bullying. Okay, thank you.
So one of the things the school committee is in charge of is the budget. So if you guys find that you need resources, additional resources, if you could just keep us informed. You can tell we're very interested in supporting this, and you guys are doing a fantastic job. So let us know if we can help on that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, that was awesome.
Okay. Next up is subcommittee reports. We'll start with policy with Melissa.
Nothing new to report. I think we're probably preparing some documents for upcoming town meetings at some point. Topsfield is first on May 8th. And the changes to the amendment are actually under a consent agenda. So that could be interesting to see how that plays out. And then we have our mask review meeting on Tuesday, the 13th at 2 p.m. via Zoom. Sorry to say that.
Do you guys know what Cossagee, or does anyone from Middleton know if they're on the consent agenda for Middleton or if they're separate?
We don't have a consent agenda.
Yeah, I don't think Boxford does either.
But, you know, we've talked with the moderator about moving and discussing the articles as one package and voting as one package.
Okay.
Oh. There will be no opposition.
That sounds like a threat.
Well, people are going to want to hang out.
Dedicated them to Nancy Jones.
Okay.
Very good.
I hope that works in Boxford since it's going to be the last Saturday in June. It would be nice to.
When did you say?
Move through it mostly.
May 8th. Your next meeting? April 13th at 2. Did everyone hear me say April 13th at 2 is our next mask meeting?
Okay. Thank you.
Next mask. Yeah, it's not a policy.
We haven't, right, we did, I think, start a draft of
Here in a minute.
article.
I haven't.
Oh, great. So that's what I would the draft to regulations to, okay, to continue it.
That's great. I mean, I don't believe there are any specific overrides for the budget, but it's still important that the town knows what's in the budget and how it was put together. It's nice to focus on it when it's not just a tax increase. A community engagement, Bonnie?
We met last week. We had student council there for an update on the Small Town Hero Awards, going amazingly. And the press releases will be out next week on that. The students were great to talk to about just all of the steps that are upcoming. And we're working on articles, we're working on outreach to Council on Aging and community ambassadors, and we're meeting this upcoming Monday, the 12th at 6:30.
Thank you. All right. DCI. Are you going to talk about that in a future meeting?
We have some fun.
Okay. All right. Next up is anti-racism.
So in your packet, there's an update to our resolution. It's brought to our attention from people on CPAC. I don't know what you say on the CPAC committee, or just say CPAC, that we were missing an important protected class, I guess you somebody that we want to protect, and that was people with disabilities. So the only change to our resolution is you can see where it's highlighted in that first paragraph that we've just added in or disability.
I move to approve, are you done?
Yeah, that's
I move to approve the update to the resolution.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Actually, raise hands. Raise hands, I can't hear. All right, it's unanimous.
Thank you. So we've begun putting together a policy, and actually the policy is mostly the words from this resolution written in, because it really does have in there our three tenets of the policy that we wanted, which was looking at curriculum, looking at experiences for students, and looking at professional development for teachers. And so we've written up or wordsmithed it to what we think is a good policy. And now our next step is to meet with our policy people and see if they agree, and then bring it back to the full committee to accept as a new policy.
Okay.
So would coming on 4/13 at 2 be an appropriate time? No. So do you want to just talk to me at off? Okay.
Yeah, set up a meeting.
Okay, let's do it. And I believe that is it. Our next meeting is sometime in the future. It is the 26th at 2, and we're going to be discussing Masconomet, the name, the man, and reading some arguments, I guess, that were written for Mr. Mitchell's history class on using the title, yes or no. And so
Are
talking.
those, when you put together the agenda, can you like link to those if you have them?
Yes,
So we
that's a
can
good
take
idea.
Peek at them too.
Yep.
I don't think there are any names attached to them, so.
I think he just.
Yeah, there aren't any student names on
Okay.
it, so.
Well, if he's okay with it, I guess we should check. I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
Well, he sent them to us to share, so I will do that.
Thank you.
Dates.
Forgot
about
that. No, okay, April 26th.
No.
The other day.
Setting dates for the summer.
Oh, right. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
The one thing on my list I gotta check out.
Keep me accountable. So we had spoke about last time about the ideas. person group, not person, but how it begins with training at the school committee level and the executive leadership team, and kind of disseminates itself down so that hopefully someday these students would be receiving similar stuff to what we're doing. And it was you know, it was a great meeting to hear today after we were talking about that. But we want to start with this the summer. And Mike, were you finding out? Did you hear it? You didn't.
I haven't heard back from Karen yet.
Okay, we're not exactly sure the time for these trainings, but we're thinking maybe 4 to 5 hours at a minimum, maybe 9 hours at a maximum. So it could be 1 or 2 nights, and we're talking about doing this instead of our retreat, because we feel like the goals that we're talking about, not the goals, but the ideals that we're talking about would be very useful at this time in our juncture, so in our history. So I think we're proposing to send around a doodle poll and have it where it would kind of be retreat hours if we were doing something starting at 3 or 4, and have it just go till later, once, maybe twice, but if it was like a Wednesday this week and a Wednesday next week, or.
And we were thinking about in person for that, right?
So
or is that up in the
air? I mean, it's all up in the air, but hopefully in person. She's done, Karen, the woman who's led these trainings, has done them remotely also. I think it would be really hard to spend that time. Like, I wouldn't want to break up a 4 or 5 hour into like 2 hour, like that's just getting a little bit too chunky, personally. So, and you know, when we could all go away, make it a vacation. Yeah, to the DoubleTree and Hyannis. But
Okay.
So, anyways, we're gonna send a doodle out.
Yeah, looking for dates in August.
August.
Yeah.
Okay. Early August.
So just like, I mean, we would normally do it anyway for the retreat. So
Not early
like, for everyone to just know, like, the doodle poll is just to know who's available when, and then narrow it down from there.
Right. Yeah. So we would have our normal meeting in May, in June, July. I can't even remember.
It was on my to-do list.
This would be like the meeting in August, is basically what it is.
Great, thank you. Anything from the liaisons to the elementary school committee? I think they're all back in school. First school week. Great. Great. We'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes approval of the March 24th, 2021 meeting minutes, approval of the March 3rd, 2021 meeting minutes revised, warrants of $1,599,141.08 signed since March 24th, 2021, accepting the institution for savings gift in the amount of $1,000, which is for the senior celebration, and accepting the MEF gift in the amount of $400, which is for an 8th grade weather station. Do I have a motion? I second that. You approve, can you raise your hand, please? It's unanimous. And before we wrap up, I just want to thank Arate Kasuchi for her service to the school committee.
Thank you.
This is your last meeting, right?
Yes.
Well, good luck with everything.
Thanks.
And that is the end of our public meeting. I'm going to move to adjourn into executive session for the purpose of discussing strategy relative to collective bargaining with the Masconomet Teachers Association. Executive session purpose number 3. I've determined that holding this discussion in open session may have a detrimental impact on the district's bargaining position. The committee will not return to open session.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Okay.